Welcome to Mind Set in Stone podcasts, where we dive deep into the most compelling books on the shelf. Join hosts Dave and Poppy as they uncover the stories, themes, and ideas that shape our understanding and inspire curiosity. Get ready to explore the big ideas that leave a lasting impact. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Mind Set in Stone podcast.
Today, we are undertaking a deep dive that, frankly, many of us needed yesterday.
We are plunging into a highly relatable, often hilarious, but ultimately quite profound text.
That's Hayley Morris's book, Me versus Brain, An Overthinker's Guide to Life. It's just a masterclass in making anxiety and all that constant rumination feel less isolating.
So the mission for this deep dive is pretty clear. We want to extract the vital strategies that help you, our listener, deal with that relentless inner monologue.
We really need to understand why this voice acts like a saboteur, or, as Morris describes it, a truly terrible flatmate.
Oh, that's the perfect description. A flatmate who lives rent-free is usually wrong and just thrives on generating sheer, unnecessary panic.
And what makes this whole approach so effective is the framing of that central conflict. Morris labels her calm, rational self as me.
The person just trying to get to the day, pay the bills, make good decisions.
And then there is Brain, the anxious, chaotic inner monologue.
Brain is the ultimate irritant, isn't it? It's that roommate who uses all your stuff without asking, keeps you awake with constant frantic whispering.
And seems to exist purely to invent these catastrophic scenarios.
Yes, and by giving this entity a name and a personality, Morris immediately offers us a way to separate the anxiety from our true selves.
It creates that crucial distance. It's no longer I am anxious.
Its brain is being loud right now.
And that is exactly where we need to start. So let's unpack the anatomy of the overthinker specifically, where that frantic voice comes from, and the surprising protective function it often serves.
Morris talks about the very beginning of this process, which she first called the voiceover.
Yeah, she traces it all the way back. She was incredibly young.
Like 6 years old.
She remembers watching sad Disney films where the animal parents died. And in that moment of, empathy and sadness, a clear, terrifying whisper emerged.
Imagine if your parents died right now.
Chilling, isn't it? It shows that instantaneous leap to catastrophic thinking. It wasn't a slow build, it was just abrupt.
And as she got older, the voiceover evolved from those random whispers into a constant frantic presence narrating everything.
Every mundane task and always offering up these horrific, deeply undesirable scenarios.
The examples are so good. Like when she was a waitress, the voice would pop up with, imagine if you tripped over now and landed face first in a pile of smashed up glass.
Or the really terrifying one when she was learning to drive and the voiceover was just screaming at her.
Swerve the car off the cliff edge. Just do it.
For years, this was her secret source of profound shame. She internalized it all.
Thinking, I must be broken.
I must be the type of person who would drop a baby or who would crash a car. She genuinely believed these intrusive thoughts reflected her deepest, darkest desires.
And here's where the narrative just offers this first great wave of relief.
When a friend confessed a similar experience, imagining pushing Morris off a seawall while they were standing there.
And that immediately broke the isolation.
Suddenly, she realized this internal saboteur wasn't unique to her. It has a clinical name, intrusive thoughts.
Which brings us to the first crucial practical insight. It's a massive reframing of that fear.
The insight is this. Intrusive thoughts, whether they're about violence or just absurd, bizarre scenarios.
I think she mentions elderly couples engaging in intimacy.
Yes. They are often the opposite of what we truly want to do or who we are. They are not predictions.
No, they're not. They are Brain's extremely peculiar, sort of avant-garde way of trying to protect us.
By simulating the worst possible scenario, crashing the car, dropping the baby Brain is running a neurological safety drill.
So that our instinct immediately knows how to avoid it.
Exactly. It's like a highly aggressive, deeply graphical tutorial on self-preservation.
It's the most high-definition, worst-case scenario rehearsal imaginable. And the crucial takeaway is understanding that the intensity of the thought
is usually proportional to how much we don't want that thing to happen.
The thoughts are trying to keep us safe, even though they feel like they're actively trying to destroy us.
And Morris adds this beautiful piece of cultural context that helps in normalizing it all. She talks about the urge to jump off a high place.
And how the French term for this feeling is l'appel du vide.
Which translates to the call of the void.
And just by naming it that way, calling it sexy and mysterious, as she notes, It suddenly strips away some of that terrifying clinical edge.
It does. It stops being a symptom of some deep-seated problem and becomes a recognized, documented, almost poetic human experience.
It makes you wonder why we in English-speaking culture sometimes struggle to name these scary things so gracefully.
That's a really interesting point. Maybe it's because anxiety for so long was seen as a personal failure rather than, a common neurological glitch.
So by adopting terms like l'appel du vide, we acknowledge that this fear is ancient and universal.
Not a personal flaw you developed last Tuesday. Normalizing the terminology truly helps normalize the feeling.
And to really drive home the frantic, high-energy nature of brain, Morris throws in some definitely true facts about brain.
They're hilarious because they feel so true.
So relatable. My favorite is the speed metric.
Oh, yes. Information in your brain travels at around 268 miles per hour. That's faster than a Formula One car.
Yet somehow this incredible speed is still slower than a colleague explaining a spreadsheet.
Or an itinerary or anything else requiring sustained attention in just unnecessary, excruciating detail.
It really underscores the paradox of the overthinker, doesn't it? A mind that works at incredible speed but achieves very little because it's so distracted by itself.
And speaking of distraction, the sheer volume of output is just mind-boggling. Brain generates 48.6 thoughts per minute.
And she breaks that number down, which is the bad part. 48 of those thoughts are dedicated to your weird, deeply inappropriate crush on Nigel from the local corner shop.
Which leaves 0.6 of a thought dedicated to anything productive.
Like remembering to pay your insurance or take the bins out.
The mental bandwidth is just monopolized by low-stakes, high-emotion garbage.
And then there's the memory retention. Brain holds 200 million memories.
But are they helpful memories? About geography or, investment strategy?
Absolutely not. They're exclusively minor, embarrassing things you've done that absolutely no one else in the world noticed.
Brain is a digital curator of retroactively manufactured humiliation.
It really proves that brain is fundamentally obsessed with using the past to sabotage the present.
So that establishes the chaotic landscape we're working in. Let's transition now and see how brain attacks the everyday social battlefield.
The first, and maybe most universally understood attack, is the text message trap.
Anyone who has ever waited for a reply or dissected an innocuous message will recognize this spiral.
Morris walks us through a simple, real-life morning exchange with her boyfriend. It starts with them texting morning.
That's it, just morning.
And brain immediately leaps into analysis.
The entire emotional state of the relationship is distilled down to that lack of punctuation. Brain screams that the missing exclamation mark proves he is livid.
He must be angry. He must have seen something. The relationship is in jeopardy.
So she panics and replies asking if he's okay. He texts back, "Good, how are you?"
Brain's internal monologue interprets this as seething with fury.
Because he didn't preface the "how are you" with "thank you for asking." The fact that he's asking is just a formality before the bad news.
And then, the final catastrophic blow. He uses a full stop at the end of the sentence.
Brain screams, a full stop. He's using formal terminal punctuation. Call the police. This is bad. Very, very bad.
The full stop is, in Brain's logic, the definitive proof of an impending hostile breakup.
It's tragicomic, isn't it? The anxiety transforms the most basic, functional element of language, a period, into a signifier of doom.
When in reality, the partner was probably just walking into a meeting.
Or hadn't had his coffee yet.
And this overwhelming mental energy wasted on decoding punctuation leads us directly to our second crucial strategy.
Seek verbal confirmation, not punctuation analysis.
This is the circuit breaker. The moment that text analysis spiral begins, the moment you start counting exclamation points or obsessing over whether the K for okay was too aggressive.
You must ditch the frantic decoding and simply pick up the phone.
That act of calling is a physiological and psychological disruption. It forces brain out of that isolated echo chamber where it thrives.
Right. Texting allows brain to invent subtext. A phone call demands present moment reality.
And when Morris finally calls him, he confirms everything is fine. She realizes she created a high-stakes emergency that consumed 5 minutes of her life out of a single word and a full stop.
The speed at which that crisis deflates once reality is introduced is the power of this technique.
The takeaway is, when in doubt, introduce friction by demanding real-time human connection.
Moving from the digital battlefield to the physical, we encounter the intense anxiety of public scrutiny. She calls it the room entry challenge.
This is that moment when you walk into a cafe or a pub or a restaurant alone, waiting for someone.
The sheer terror of that short walk from the door to the table. Brain immediately assumes you are the center of attention.
The fear is that every single person in the room stops talking, scares, laughs internally, and wonders if you've been pathetically stood up.
Even if you're only 3 minutes early.
The physical manifestation of this is so profound. Your cheeks start to burn red. You feel like you've forgotten how the human body works.
You're walking across the room with dead straight legs and arms flopping awkwardly at your sides. She describes it perfectly. A horrifying, exposed cross-room performance.
It's the ultimate feeling of being the only person in the room who knows how ridiculous they look.
And the truth, of course, is that most people are completely engrossed in their own lives, their own conversations, their own phones. Their brain refuses to believe it.
So, this anxiety requires our third strategy, pre-planned entrance strategies.
Yes. When you know you're going into a situation that triggers that exposed feeling, you have to implement specific distraction tactics.
For a pub or a date, the strategy is to establish a safe zone immediately.
That safe zone is the bar. You walk straight there, establishing an immediate, purposeful task. You are now busy, waiting to order, not waiting to be judged.
And the detail here is brilliant. To maximize a time bot, you order a complicated drink.
Something like a double Long Island iced tea, no tequila, extra vodka. You need the bartender to spend time on it. You need to look deeply invested in your beverage choice.
You might mildly annoy the service staff, but you've successfully anchored yourself and bought several minutes of unjudged time.
And for a cafe or meeting a friend, the tactics are pure stealth.
The author suggests wearing sunglasses and, crucially, plugging in headphones, but with no music playing.
That's genius. The headphone signal, I am unavailable and engrossed in my own world, which immediately deflects scrutiny.
But leaving the music off means you retain full auditory awareness.
You combine this with tilting your head slightly to look completely immersed in your phone. And if the internal pressure still becomes too much.
If brain starts yelling that your fly is open or your hair looks ridiculous,
you execute the final tactical retreat, go to the bathroom for 10 minutes to wait it out.
These aren't cures for anxiety. They are highly effective, low-effort defensive moves. They're about creating a plausible distraction.
Or a personal bubble that allows the physical self to function while brain is occupied or, temporarily muted.
And the need for these external defenses stems from an internal confusion, which Morris addresses next with identity overload, specifically in the wardrobe.
She describes staring into the fabric mess of clothes, a visual representation of all the identities she has tried to adopt over the past decade.
The PVC trousers next to the modest chic blouse, next to the goth punk cowboy gear. Every morning, brain demands she choose an identity.
And the inability to choose leads to decision fatigue that is just truly exhausting.
This decision fatigue, the inability to choose clothes or makeup or even breakfast, is an external reflection of a much deeper, more anxiety-provoking internal question.
Who on earth am I? The daily choice becomes guilt-ridden. It turns into self-loathing over being a wasteful, ridiculous human because she can't stick to one style.
She details the spiral. She puts on a simple black dress, and instantly, brain starts screaming, "My goodness, are we pregnant? Why else would you choose something so shapeless and depressing?"
The simplest garment choices are loaded with existential dread.
The ultimate insight here is that finding yourself takes time, which is precisely why she often defaults back to the basic white t-shirt and jeans.
The takeaway is that this identity quest doesn't need to be solved in one go. You are a process, not a final product.
And this ties into a beautiful piece of inherited wisdom from her mother who offered this advice. What is meant for you will not pass you by.
It's about persistence over perfection. The takeaway is to persevere with anything that genuinely sparks joy or captures your attention.
Like in her case, making comedy videos, which eventually became her full-time job.
Right. Stop fighting the current identity and focus on the things that naturally pull you forward. The rest will follow.
That brings us powerfully into our next section. High-stakes anxiety and mindset shifts. This is where brain moves past social situations and starts dealing with life or death threats.
Starting with health anxiety, or what she calls doctor brain mode.
Her description of her first panic attack is crucial because it debunks that cinematic version of anxiety. It wasn't hyperventilating and dramatic collapse.
No, it started with a profound, terrifying tightness in her chest, like a rubber band around her lungs, and an uneven, racing pulse.
Brain, having absorbed every melodramatic medical drama, immediately transforms into Dr. Brain. complete with an emergency room soundtrack.
Dr. Brain skips all the rational steps and immediately diagnoses a heart attack, yelling, "Stay with me, Hayley. Don't look into light. We are going to code."
The physical symptoms of a panic attack, the chest tightness, the tingling, the irregular heart rate, so perfectly mimic serious cardiac events.
Brain feels completely justified in its catastrophic diagnosis. The panic isn't just fear, it's a genuine physical fear of imminent mortality.
But the truly isolating part is the fear of public scrutiny on top of the physical fear.
She contemplates telling her friend what's happening, that she thinks she's dying, but immediately decides, better just die in silence.
Rather than endure the profound embarrassment of confessing a potentially non-existent medical emergency.
This is the core theme of high-stakes anxiety. The internal terror is compounded by the external fear of being perceived as dramatic or attention-seeking.
The anxiety creates such an intense fear of judgment that death seems preferable to public vulnerability.
And this heightened self-consciousness bleeds into every mundane task. She describes crossing the road not just as a task, but as a horrifying exposed performance.
Where every driver is bored and staring at her, scrutinizing her gait, her clothes, her every move. This state of hyper-vigilant self-awareness is the exhausting default for the anxious mind.
Let's pivot now to the fourth core insight, which is a critical mindset shift concerning body image and media pressure.
This segment details the author's long struggle with cystic acne. Her descriptions are incredibly visceral and powerful.
She talks about the almond magnum look when she tried to cake herself in heavy, thick makeup to cover the spots, resulting in this thick, textured shell.
And the terror of waking up to blood on the pillow from spots that burst overnight. It's a continuous, visible struggle that feeds Brain's most cruel commentary.
Brain, of course, is relentless. It's always finding fault. If it's not acne, it's cellulite or weird shoulders or a stomach that sticks out too far.
Brain is a moving target, ensuring self-acceptance is impossible.
The key realization here, which I think is brilliant, is that bodies trend just like fashion trends. She calls this just completely barbaric, and it is.
It's true. Cellulite is in or out depending on the decade. Thigh gaps are fashionable and they are not. Bodies become accessories to be judged against these arbitrary standards.
The deep shift is realizing that our bodies are not accessories or trends. They are vessels for living.
For experiencing the world, for working, for loving, they are functional, not decorative.
And the practical action stemming from this realization is deeply resonant. When Brain attacks the reflection and whispers that she should immediately delete a photo because she looks hideous,
She keeps it.
she keeps it as a form of self-love and radical acceptance. And the reason is, the current hideous self is the person next year's self will be competing with.
That photo, currently deemed imperfect, will be looked back on in 12 months with surprising fondness.
Or at least acceptance as new anxieties take over. It flips the narrative from self-loathing to self-documentation. It turns the photograph into a piece of evidence that Brain was wrong all along.
That kind of mental jujitsu is exactly what overthinkers need.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about the final high-stakes anxiety strategy, which is also one of the funniest in the book. The value of clearing the to-do list.
Which comes up in the context of intimacy.
Morris notes that sex is sadly not one of the times Brain is silenced. Why? Because complete, undivided concentration is needed for a happy ending.
And Brain refuses to allow that kind of focus unless its internal checklist is complete.
The irony is so rich. During a moment designed for connection and passion, Brain starts listing chores.
It notes the massive cobweb in the corner, worries about the cream trousers that need washing for tomorrow's meeting, or raises concerns about the state of the overflowing bins.
The constant mental inventory just completely derails the present physical moment.
So the resulting strategy is beautifully pragmatic for the overthinker.
Use the necessity of concentration to motivate minor chores beforehand. Foreplay, she declares, starts with a clean kitchen, freshly washed cream trousers, and empty bins.
By getting the mental clutter dealt with first, you clear the bandwidth needed for physical and emotional connection. It's a literal way of saying, I'm clearing my internal desktop so I can focus.
And because efficiency is key to managing anxiety, she offers a bonus tip for focus. Set a hard time limit for sex.
If bake-off starts at 8 p.m., you need to get down to business at 7 p.m. That hard deadline ensures focus, efficiency, and encourages everyone to get on with it quicker.
That is the overthinker's ultimate solution to everything, applying strategic project management to intimacy.
So we've established the conflict and the strategies for managing daily life. Now we move into the tools for acceptance and growth, which show how she found ways to manage Brain.
Right, rather than fighting or suppressing her. This begins with the sixth strategy, the amazing guru strategy against imposter syndrome.
She details the classic scenario: walking into a coffee shop and imposter syndrome whispering, "Only cool girls drink chai lattes. You are trying too hard. Who are you trying to fool?"
Imposter syndrome thrives on self-criticism and the fear of being found out as a fraud. So to counteract this relentless internal heckler, she created and recruited an internal guru.
And the guru is a specific archetype, a straight, white, male alter ego who speaks with unearned conviction.
The guru's advice is simple, direct, and delivered without any self-doubt. Speak with conviction, look serious, make a few jokes, and focus only on the task at hand.
Like getting a loyalty card stamp or ordering without stuttering.
It's a brilliant mental hack. By temporarily borrowing an identity that society often grants automatic confidence to, she manages to drown out the self-doubt. The guru doesn't care about the chai latte judgment.
He just wants the loyalty points.
But I wonder if relying on this kind of alter ego based on a stereotype is really sustainable. Does it actually solve the self-doubt or just mask it?
That's a fair and important question. I think the key is in the outcome she describes. The guru isn't a permanent solution, but a strategic distraction.
She eventually finds the guru and imposter syndrome making out in the back corner.
Brain is busy flirting with its counter strategy. Mi is free to function. So it's a controlled internal experiment that, for her, successfully rerouted the critical energy.
That reframing seeing internal dynamics as a soap opera rather than a death match is a key step toward acceptance.
The book then moves into much harder-won wisdom concerning grief and gut instinct.
This section on grief is particularly raw. After losing her father to dementia, Morris realized that grief doesn't follow the textbook 5 stages.
Her stages were non-linear and much more chaotic. She listed them as hardy, then anger, where she punched navy blue velvet cushions.
Then a long period of yawning, foggy exhaustion, followed by inappropriate laughter, then envy, and finally a painful, drawn-out acceptance. Yes, okay, this has happened.
This illustrates the crucial point that emotional processes are personalized and messy. She also highlights the physical toll.
Noting that she felt chest pain so intense, she was convinced she was dying of a heart attack. A direct return to Dr. Brain mode.
This physical manifestation, a broken heart that felt indistinguishable from a medical emergency, shows how closely linked the emotional and physical anxieties are.
Then there is the complex and painful wisdom gained through gut instinct. She discusses a long-distance boyfriend and a constant churning sensation in her stomach.
A feeling she realized meant gut was 98% psychic.
Despite fighting that psycho girlfriend stereotype, the escalating anxiety and distance became unbearable. Gut was screaming so loudly she finally followed its advice.
She violated his privacy and checked his Facebook Messenger.
And of course, Gut was right. He was cheating. This raises a complicated ethical conflict. To know the truth, she had to look inside, meaning she had to break that bond of trust.
This is where we have to engage critically with the source material, right? Is she suggesting that violating trust is justified if your gut feeling is strong enough?
I think the lesson isn't about promoting surveillance, but about radical self-preservation. Her internal conflict was so intense that the truth, however painful, was the only way to silence brain and gut.
For her, that choice, while breaking a bond, was a massive lesson in listening to internal signals when external reality seemed evasive.
Which brings this entire journey to our 7th and perhaps most important strategy, the path to acceptance found through therapy.
Morris initially had that classic misconception of therapy lying on a chaise longue, being judged by a stern, bearded old man.
Instead, she found a therapist who specialized in anxiety and bereavement, a kind, mumsy-looking woman who, most importantly, didn't judge.
That lack of judgment was the crucial difference. When Morris detailed her wildest anxieties, the intrusive thoughts, the self-doubt, the social fears, the therapist didn't diagnose or panic.
She simply provided non-judgmental validation.
She responded with phrases like, "That must have been really hard."
And crucially confirmed that what Morris felt was perfectly normal.
That validation, being told you are not crazy, you are not broken, and that your internal chaos is a shared human experience, is the ultimate key to shifting the relationship with brain.
Morris learned the hard truth. It is impossible and unnecessary to silence brain completely.
Brain is always going to generate chatter and protective hypotheticals.
Now, the focus is not on elimination, but on acceptance and redirection. She recognizes brain's voice as common, shared noise, and learns to gently pivot her attention back to the present task.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, navigating your own internal flatmate? We've covered 7 powerful, actionable insights.
Let's quickly recap the biggest lessons. First, remember the power of reframing intrusive thoughts. Label them as brain's protective, avant-garde safety drill.
Second, ditch the punctuation analysis in texts. When the spiral starts, seek verbal confirmation immediately. Reality is faster than interpretation.
Third, for social anxiety, use pre-planned entrance strategies. Head straight for the bar, or deploy the fake headphones and the deeply engrossed in your phone look.
Fourth, acknowledge the tyranny of trend-based body image. Your body is a vessel for living, not an accessory. Keep the hideous photo for next to yourself to appreciate.
Fifth, make your chores your foreplay. Use the necessity of concentration during intimacy to motivate yourself to clean the mental and physical clutter beforehand.
Sixth, when imposter syndrome attacks, recruit your internal guru to speak with unearned, direct confidence until the self-doubt is successfully distracted.
And finally, seventh, accept brain. Validate her chatter. Recognize it's normal, shared, and impossible to silence. Validation, non-judgmental acknowledgement, and redirection are the path forward.
The final thought we want to leave you with is a motivational call to action, building on the hard-won wisdom of the author.
The next time brain starts whispering a fear or an intrusive thought, we want you to label it immediately as the brain protection protocol.
Recognize the thought is trying to keep you safe, thank it for the warning, even if it was a ridiculous warning, and then proceed with the logical, rational plan instead of the anxious one.
And remember, the author's father's ultimate antidote to both internal and external scrutiny. Do whatever you want to do. Who cares if people think you're weird? If it's fun for you, just do it.
Don't let the fear of judgment from your own brain or imaginary spectators dictate your life.
That's all we have for this deep dive. We hope these detailed insights help you better navigate the hilarious and stressful world of overthinking. Until next time.
We hope you're leaving with fresh insights and a spark of inspiration. Remember to subscribe, leave a review, and check back for more episodes as we dive into new worlds of thought, one book at a time. Until then, keep your mind set in stone and your curiosity open. This has been a Big L Riz Media podcast, where big ideas meet lasting impressions.